And
is that?
It's different for Glendale, and that's a collective bargaining agreement and that's locally defined. You have the state minimum qualifications, and then locally you can define your minimum qualifications. And for example, our ESL, business, and business teachers all have the same minimum quals as credit.
A master's?
Master's degree.
At all levels.
Right.
At all levels. And then, so that kind of gets to my question about collaboration, and I think the question that you were leading to about guidelines and trying to make it simpler. As these consortiums meet and you plan to move forward in adult ed, are we just going to have two separate systems with each having its own faculty, or do we see any collaboration? And if we do, how do we get around the needs of the credentialing to community college and credentialing to K-12?
The discussions that we've had regarding reciprocity have been along the lines of grandfathering in those K-12 adult educators that teach in similar subject matters as offered in non-credit. It does not bridge the credit system, but we're talking about a close relationship between a K-12 adult education and non-credit offerings in the community college system. So that reciprocity may be easier to bridge through the grandfather process without having to disrupt ed code. So it's really about saying we recognize the credential that is required for K-12 adult educators in their service area as an equal minimum qual, or as a verifiable qualification to teach the same subject matter in non-credit.
I would be interested to know how many teachers there are in the state of California who hold an adult education credential, because in the K-12 system that I'm familiar with, most teachers are teaching adult education who hold probably high school credentials or perhaps elementary school credential, maybe, I'm not sure on that, but not necessarily an adult education credential. So that would be interesting to know how many teachers in the state of California hold an adult education credential.
And we felt that this would be a good starting point because we know that we would want to have those teachers more prepared for the college environment, and that's why we are incorporating a professional development aspect in the conversation to really refine how we go about bringing more into the system and then again erasing the line between the two.
And so maybe my broader question is you see these consortiums and the delivery of adult education, we're still looking at it as two different delivery systems?
I think there's two answers to that question. I think when it comes to administering programs, our regional consortia would suggest that there still needs to be two systems to administer those programs. A regional consortium couldn't possibly do the day-to-day program administration. However, when it comes to the regional collaboration, that's essential, obviously, for student success and for them to transition onto their post-secondary education and complete programs. But we feel that there needs to be a stronger incentive. So ultimately, if somehow the community college apportionment was also folded in, the legislative analyst office also mentioned some of the WIB dollars, that makes people more, that gives them a bigger incentive to make sure that they have a seat at the table, because your partnership is only as strong as the people that are there. If people move or leave, you're constantly trying to reinvigorate that partnership and give them a reason to want to work together for student success. But sometimes there needs to be a bigger impact. So in addition to recommending dedicated funding for adult education, I would agree that there needs to be a regional accountability plan per consortium. There needs to be some clearly defined expectations on behalf of the State Chancellor's Office on what exactly the objectives are that we need to meet, not just in student performance outcomes, but as far as the collaboration between the two systems and how the funding is allocated. Also, I want to make sure that I mention that the proposal from the Department of Finance on the allocation committee, we believe should be an advisory role, that they could propose recommendations to the executive board, but that they are not making the final decisions. They could hear from members and partners on how they feel that the funding could be spent and propose those recommendations on further, but not create another level of bureaucracy. But I believe that that ongoing collaboration is absolutely essential, that the consortiums need to continue. There has been a lot of great work that has come out of this planning phase, and we'd like to see that collaboration continue so that we can increase student access to programs and maybe offer some satellite courses or dual enrollment opportunities and help address some of the barriers that our students face in our region as well. So.
If I may, a comment. I sense the Senator's frustration with the lack of detail, particularly when it came to finances, but I have to say that's going to be the last issue. We're dealing with big cultural, philosophical, academic issues. And even in the planning process, Senator, it's been problematical. We've been compensating teachers to participate in the process, but we had to decide early on that each teacher would be compensated on the rate that would be paid by their own home school district. So we have disparity already. I think ultimately, my opinion is that we need a delineation of function, which adult ed services will be provided through K-12 and which ones should be provided through the colleges. But when you get to that point of deciding who's going to work where and money and how much you're going to pay them, don't expect an easy settlement. It's just an incredibly complex issue. On the matter of fees, we implemented a $30, pretty modest fee for the 5 basic areas in 2009. And many of our teachers, social justice specialists as they are, were really whining about people can't afford it. Many people, we do scholarship many people, but usually when a youngster comes, or oldster comes into my office, I say, can you give me $10? I'm saying that, not the 30, give me something. I almost decided free is not a good price. There's nothing, any personal investment in that. It took time for us to register, to test, particularly an ESL student, to give them diagnostic tests and all that, and they would come and sign up for it, and then attend for a week or two, or not attend and disappear. So I'm not convinced free is good, but I think we need to keep our fees modest. But I think the financing and the payment of staff and the credentialing issues will be the last things ironed out, because I think they're incredibly complex.
Thank you.
Senator Liu, I had a question on GED, and I think one of the panelists mentioned the GED.
Ouch.
And I used to administer it and teach GED preparation, but I see figures here that on the revamped GED, only 56% of the adults who took it, the revamped GED, passed it. Can you explain why the decline? What can you tell me?
56% sounds optimistic to me. Our experience on the first pass, certainly, I would not say that we're getting 56% pass on the first test. It's analytical skilling, reasoning. It's Common Core on steroids for people who have never been exposed to that. Many of our students come from foreign countries, but they simply don't bring the background knowledge to answer the questions. At one time, you'd read a passage about the Civil War, and you'd respond to that, but the information you needed was contained in the passage, so it was a reading about history, not really a history exam. Now you're bringing in prior knowledge that might tell you that Abraham Lincoln was president during the Civil War, but that might ask you, some people think he was a great president, some think he was a failure. What do you think and why? That's complicated for many people, let alone second language people. So it's just a lot of analytical reasoning. It's good stuff, certainly. But the students that we had, if they could master that on the initial round, they probably wouldn't be in the adult school right now.
And that's a national exam.
It is. There's been some pushback on this. The thing that bothers me is GED, we thought of as a public brand, has been bought by a private company. It's now like Kleenex. You can't call it that unless it's that. Pearson VUE owns it. They're a publishing company. They're in the business of testing professionals for licensing that are much more sophisticated than our students are. It's all computer generated. You have to register online. The whole process is online. That intimidates some of the people. Some like it because they don't like their handwriting, and teachers never like their handwriting, so they can use the keyboard. But it's just a very complicated process, and it's getting better. But Pearson VUE, quite honestly, hasn't treated me as a customer very fairly. This is it, like the DMV. You want it, get in line, do it. But I'm a customer. Now, Los Angeles Unified, I believe, somebody can help me here, has pushed back against it and is alternating another test. I think we need to start talking about HSE in California, high school equivalency, because there are options to that. I understand the state of New York has pushed back on the Pearson VUE program as well. So my problem is I haven't gone for the alternate test because GED is so widely recognized and understood, and I don't want my students to work for a credential that no one's going to accept or understand. So I told the publisher first, talk to chambers of commerce, to the public, to employers, and tell them what you got, and then I'm in line. But we need to have something that's recognized.
And the high school equivalency exam that is given, right, is given to students who could be in high school and want to get out of high school.
Oh, okay,
early.
That's the high school proficiency exam. Yes.
Well, there was
that could be taken at age 16. That's an early out option. Usually, there's no reason that I don't think. Is there any reason an adult can't take it? I don't know that, but very few do.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions from members, so thank you very much for joining us today. You've enlightened us about the work at the consortium.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to to our next panel. And this will offer us a perspective on the K-12 and California community colleges districts, their perspectives. We have Cynthia Parluan Colfer, Superintendent of Hacienda La Puente Unified School District. She is representing the Association of California School Administrators. And we also have Lizette Navarrete, Legislative Advocate for the Community College League of California. Thank you, ladies.
I've gotten older. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Cindy Parluan Colfer. I'm the superintendent for Hacienda La Puente Unified School District, also a member of AXA, which represents over 16,000 school leaders throughout this state. On a personal aside, I too have been, as an assembly person who's left here, been a student of this adult school program in a K-12 system. The business ed experience I received there actually really helped me. I've also been an adult education teacher, and I'm very active in the statewide organizations for adult education. I want to give you a little bit of a background in terms of what happened to adult education within my school district. We have a very strong commitment and understanding from the Board of Education that we provide services for a community. And there are a lot of research that identifies the education of a mother will directly impact the success of a child. And so we looked at having transparent conversations when flexibility hit with labor to identify that employees were also within their unions. We did do some balancing in terms of how did we provide the services. We continued with the services, very committed. We still serve over 14,000 adult students in our school district. We have about 19,000 K-12 students. About 78% of those are Hispanic. We also have various sections within our 31 schools that have a significant Asian Pacific Islander population, about 40 to 43% in some of our schools. So we provide a lot of letters in a lot of different languages throughout our school system. So we know that we have a huge immigrant population, and myself being an immigrant and understanding that process, believe that we do need to continue that education for students. Our programs also provide services within apprenticeship, and in fact, when we did a project labor agreement that the board wanted to pursue, we had apprentice programs at Southern California laborers within our audience that identified that they'd actually gone through the apprenticeship program sponsored by our school district and were community members. So there is a local perspective with regard to education for a K-12 school district, and we are able to access access parents at the school site and provide a variety of locations for them to step into education in a more successful way and bring down barriers. But we also have a very strong CTE program and making sure that we provide short-term courses that allow for the economic stability of families, which helps to stabilize the families within our school district. We looked for lots of grants too. We read a 2-year citizenship grant, able to provide services, and had over 350 citizens each year, and that helped us to augment the number of classes that we provided. We worked very closely with our worksource centers, iTrain systems for vouchers to provide offsets for the costs of programs, things that we've always done, but did a little bit harder in order to maintain employment for our employees within our school district. And sometimes with attrition, you didn't necessarily fill all those positions, and sometimes you made choices about part-time rather than full-time because of the cost involved with regard to creating a stable education environment, but continuing to provide a cost-effective way of providing those services. We were fortunate that with the MOE that was authorized at the state level, we committed those funds to our adult education programs, and it so continued and it maintained. We've also partnered with our Title I perspectives in order to make sure that we have a healthy parent education program. We have workshops that are identified. Within credit recovery, we looked at 21st century grants for our two high need schools, 98% Hispanics with credit recovery, and increased about 25% high school graduates with those programs. So looking at various services, that's what we do, and that's what adult schools have always done, just a little bit more on desperate means to make sure that the money keeps coming in because costs raised. The LCFF and adult education is an interesting juxtaposition for me now as a superintendent. The LCFF is based on the number of K-12 students that you have. And so the dollars that are generated are specifically counted for how many students that you have within the K-12 system. You can increase that by having concentration in supplemental monies based on the targeted outcomes and free and reduced lunch, EL learners, foster youth, etc. But the outcomes are very specific to K-12 kids. The problem is that as a declining enrollment program, a district, my base grant is decreasing. My concentration in supplemental is increasing because of the number of EL learners I have, free and reduced lunch programs, etc., but my base dollars are decreasing. Now I have challenges. We did a survey actually throughout the school district, and adult education was in the top 10. It was number 6, continuing to provide that. But of course, my number 1 was Common Core, quality education for children, social assistance for children. We've seen an increased concern for that. And so we're looking at the dollars, and while we're increasing it now, I have to commit to having Common Core, professional development for instructors, ensuring that the technology infrastructure is going to be sufficient for SBAC. We started that last year to make sure that that happens, but technology in the 21st century classroom requires sufficient funds. There's also concern, and within the survey reflected by our community, to bring back visual and performing arts. It is a key component for some of our students to retain and stay within school. And so those are the balancing problems that a school district has within the LCFF confinement that really kind of limits how we can continue to address adult education services. We have a very comprehensive program, but you can only do so much within the parent engagement portion of the LCFF as well as the credit recovery. And we do that, and we continue to do that. But that isn't necessarily the breadth and scope of an adult education program within the K-12 system. So those are some challenges with regard to how do you use LCFF dollars sometimes to maintain a system that really served almost as many adult students as you had K-12 students. The Adult Ed Consortium is been enlightening and actually sometimes a little frustrating, but I think more to the effect that it has really provided an opportunity for everybody to come to the table. And I've used it as an opportunity, and my staff has, to have stronger dialogues with the community colleges and local adult schools. We have a very strong network of adult schools within our region anyway, meet regularly, and most of us don't provide certain CTE classes if a nearby one has it already. But this is a strong coordination that's happened. We're actually involved in two consortium, the community college district that we live in, but we're also a partner in a local community college that we had CTE programs that were much greater in alignment with. And that was a great flexibility with regard to the consortium, that you could be accepted as a partner because you had services that aligned with them. And in looking at that, we were able to take a look at true college and career readiness and expand it not only from TK but all the way through adult. We looked at dual enrollment. So we have a one-year LVN program that we have partnered with a community college to provide the basic education service classes, and that they will articulate the CTE component so that the adults can also get into that AA degree alignment. So we're trying. So that's a positive, I believe, in terms of those conversations that occurred within the consortium, that you're working on that articulation. Articulation from the adult education K-12 side to community college has always been based on a one-on-one conversation. And if they don't like how you look, you may not get that articulation. And there's so many programs across the state that are actually certified by state agencies, not only vocational education, nursing, but psychiatric technician, certified nursing assistants. And they have very, very stringent statewide expectations in order for you to be licensed to offer that program. So why not look at that? And I hope that the consortium will look at that and say that there should be statewide articulation with regard to those programs, so that there is true seamless transition to AA degrees and beyond for all of our students wherever they started in that system. And so I have great hopes with regard to consortiums that will be where it goes. At least I believe, and I continue to believe. Having a stable and predictable state funding, I'm not going to go too much into it. I think the consortium folks discussed that. But as a superintendent, having to face security with regard to what you're going to budget and certify to not only my Board of Education but the county that I have enough money for all of the people that I am planning to bring back next year. Having a dedicated funding stream for adult education would really facilitate that. In the course of the governor's proposal that there would be a block grant identified to ensure that those that have been implemented would be funded, we did not issue March 15th letters. We don't believe that that's really good for morale, nor is it good for our community. Our community has a great belief in making sure that we educate the child, but also educate the family so that we have a stable community. And I'm very thankful that I have a Board of Education that has that same philosophy. I've kind of grown up in the San Gabriel Valley area, so I wandered to Berkeley for a little bit, but I came back home. The governor's budget proposal, as I said, I acknowledge that their commitment for establishing that dedicated funding source for adult education. As a K-12 system, I believe that there should be something that directly funds us. And I think that the consortium members have discussed to come to the table with nothing when others have something makes it very difficult in terms of the level playing field. It is critical that we continue having that funding for those that are in existence so that you can create a stable step in stabilizing that foundation so that we can continue and not have any more decimation than we've already had in the past few years. Adult education should be recognized as a program and that it requires that stable funding and that it works in collaboration and jointly with both K-12 and community college. I'm a true product of the entire public education system. I actually took a couple of classes in community college while I was at the UC system, and even went to Cal Poly for a semester, so I know what they can provide and the services that they have throughout. And if we truly want to say that we are a state that believes in 21st century college and career readiness for all, and that we say that we are talking about workforce development for the state and for the benefit of the economy of California, I truly believe that adult education in a K-12 and community college should be funded, and it should be acknowledged as such. We have concerns about the allocation board. As you know, I work for five school board members, and they have authority to provide guidance and administration of our school district. And while we work in a consortium, we bring forth the ideas and perspectives that we have in plans as a K-12 system. I would have concerns about an allocation board that is not held accountable to the people I'm held accountable to. And to make decisions with regard to those allocations is concerning. I certainly believe that they should be there in an advisory capacity, because we should really have all players at the table. We work with EDD, we work with one-stop centers, we work with private companies that want training specifically. Those are the things that should be at that consortium, and they should have a voice, but they should be also guided with regard to what the educational systems would like to do with the funding. We welcome having non-LEA partners to be advisors, and to encourage other conversations. But the streamlining of our basic skill courses into workforce and CTE training, or accessing continuing education at CCC, should happen at the consortium level, and I believe that those will happen in those discussions. ACSA's staff has been diligent, working with a coalition of both management and labor from both the K-12 and the community college districts to develop a list of recommendations to the budget committees, which should be available in the upcoming week from ACSA. In terms of aligning policies...
If you could kind of sum up,
sure.
We would appreciate it.
We look at recommendations. We support the Cabinet to enhance and improve adult education. We believe there needs to be time to continue this allocation and alignment of programs and processes, and provide flexibility for our consortiums to decide how to leverage our programs and our services, and look for strong work in terms of an assessment tool, and to look at statewide articulation, not just local articulation. Thank you.